currently a first year in the Columbia University and Trinity College Dublin dual BA program. I am currently studying Middle Eastern and European languages and culture, and today I'm going to give you guys a rundown on the admissions process for the dual BA, as well as some of my tips and tricks for getting in. Okay, so before I get into the video, I just wanted to give a quick disclaimer and say that all the information I'm about to give you is only applicable to the fall of 2021 application cycle, and any opinions that I express are just completely based on my own personal experience applying and getting into the dual BA, and I in no way am a representative of the dual BA admissions office. So before we get on with the rest of the video, I just wanted to make a quick note for all European applicants to the dual BA. Everything I'm going to be talking about in this video relates to the official application that you have to submit for the dual BA, but I did just want to note that all European applicants do also have to submit a CAO application, and more information about that can be found on the dual BA website, which I will be linking in the description box below. So just to give you a general idea of what the application timeline looks like for the dual BA, the application typically opens on August 1st and the application deadline is January 2nd. Now, unlike other colleges, the dual BA does have two admissions rounds. The first round of admissions is just your general application, and the second round is the interview process. So you'll find out in mid-February to late February whether or not you received an invitation to interview. Those who receive an invitation interview, congratulations, you successfully moved on. Those who don't, I'm sorry to say, that means you will have been cut from the application process. Now, those who receive an invitation to interview will typically interview around late February to early March. These interviews will take place either in Dublin or New York City, or they will take place over Zoom. This year with COVID, I'm almost 100% sure they're going to be taking place over Zoom, but you will have these interviews with a panel of representatives from both Trinity College Dublin and Columbia University. Final admissions decisions will then be released in April, and you will have until May 1st to make your final decision. So the basic standard for application to the dual BA is a minimum matriculation requirement of passing grades in English, mathematics, a language other than English, and a full set of valid subjects for your examination system. So these are just the basic minimums that you need to even apply to the dual BA program. So all applicants to the dual BA do have to demonstrate proficiency in English. This means if your first language is not English, you have to submit one of the following exams, either the TOEFL, the IELTS, or the Cambridge Certificate in Advanced English. So the minimum scores required for those are for the IELTS an overall grade of 7 with no unit below 6.5. For the TOEFL, this is an overall score of 94. Reading must be 23, listening 23, speaking 22, and writing 26. And for the CAE, you have to have a B or higher on level C. You can also fulfill this English language proficiency requirement by getting a 700 or higher on the evidence-based reading and writing section of the redesigned SAT, or a 29 or higher on the English and reading sections of the ACT. So something to keep in mind when applying to the dual BA is that certain degree pathways do have program-specific admissions requirements. I'm just going to be running through them super quickly here, so if you have more in-depth questions or want more detail, I highly recommend you check out the dual BA admissions website, which I'll be linking in the description box down below, or you get in contact with the dual BA admissions office. So for classics, ancient history, and archaeology, applicants must present with Greek, Latin, or another language other than English, normally to an equivalent standard to AP or Leaving Cert H4 or above. For English studies, applicants must present with English as an entry subject, normally to AP or Leaving Cert H4 standard or the equivalent of. For European studies, students study 2 languages from French, German, Italian, Modern Irish, Polish, Russian, and Spanish. German, Italian, Polish, Russian, and Spanish are all available from beginner level, but no student may study more than one language as a beginner. So students accepted into the program will normally have at least AP or higher level grade 4 in the Leaving Cert or equivalent into French, German, Italian, Modern Irish, Polish, Russian, or Spanish. Typically, this is an H3 in the case of French, H4 in Modern Irish, and H4 in the case of Spanish if you're a non-beginner. This is also the same as the equivalent of a grade C at A level. Students who have only one language other than English or Irish may also be admitted, subject to the above regulations, and if they achieve a higher level grade H3 in the language in the Leaving Cert or a grade B at A level or the equivalent of. So for Geoscience, Geography, and Geoscience, applicants must present with at least 2 of biology, chemistry, computer science, geography, mathematics, physics, geology, applied mathematics, or agricultural science, normally to an AP or Leaving Cert H4 standard or the equivalent of. For Middle Eastern and European languages and culture, students study one of French, German, Italian, Polish, Russian, or Spanish from their first year, and one of Arabic, Hebrew, or Turkish from their second year. All languages except for French and Spanish can be studied as a complete beginner. So students may choose to do 2 languages as a complete beginner. All applicants must demonstrate proficiency in at least one language other than English or Irish, and this is typically to an AP or Leaving Cert standard H4 or the equivalent of. Last but not least, for neuroscience, biological, and biomedical science, applicants must present with at least 2 of biology, chemistry, computer science, geography, mathematics, physics, geology, applied mathematics, or agricultural science, normally to an AP or Leaving Cert H4 standard or the equivalent of. So traditionally in the past, the dual BA has had a pretty strict standardized testing policy. They required specific minimum SAT and ACT scores, as well as specific subsection scores on each of those exams. But due to the global pandemic currently going on, the dual BA has waived the standardized testing requirement for the admission cycle this year. So this means for everyone applying for the fall of 2021, they do not need to worry about doing standardized tests. If this changes in the future, I'll make sure to do an update video on this. But as of right now, if you are applying for the fall of 2021, there is no need to worry about having any sort of standardized testing done. Your transcript. So something I get asked a lot of the time is whether or not there is a minimum GPA for this program. And the answer is no. I'm not gonna lie though, a lot of the people who get into this program are pretty high achievers, which means almost everyone did have a pretty decent high school academic record as well as a high GPA. This by no means means that you need to be a straight A student, but your transcript should really show that you pushed yourself to take the hardest classes offered to you, especially in subjects related to the degree you want to pursue, and that you did well in pretty much almost all your classes. If you're a freshman or sophomore, this is definitely something to keep in mind if the dual BA is your dream program. Letters of recommendation can truly make or break a college application. When applying to the dual BA, you can submit up to 2 different letters of recommendation. They can either both be from teachers or one of them can be from a guidance counselor. Now, your teacher recommendations don't necessarily need to come from teachers who teach a subject that's directly linked to your major, but in my opinion, if you can do that, that would be best. I personally chose my Spanish teacher and my comparative government teacher to write me letters of recommendation because those were 2 subjects that were directly linked to the major I was applying for. But most importantly, they were teachers who I knew would speak favorably towards me and who I had a really good relationship with and would write me good letters of recommendation. At the end of the day, that is the most important thing. You don't need to ask the teacher you like the most. You just need to ask the teacher who knows you the best and who can write you the best letter of recommendation. The biggest advice I can also give with letters of recommendation is to ask your teachers early for them. I asked all of my teachers at the end of my junior year, giving them almost 6 months to write all of my letters of recommendation for me. Oftentimes they can have up to 100 different students coming towards them asking for a letter of recommendation. So make sure you give them enough time to write a detailed and thorough letter of recommendation for you that's going to really speak to you favorably. My other piece of advice is to make sure you have a resume on hand that you can give them when they're writing your letter of recommendation for you. I made sure for each of my teachers to print off the CV that I would be attaching to all of my college applications, as well as a blurb as to different things that I had done specifically under that teacher's tutelage. Essays I was really proud of, projects I had done, if I had participated in after-school activities or tutoring services or anything like that. I made sure to note it in this blurb and gave it to each of the teachers. You know, they can often forget a lot of these things. They see a lot of students every day, so just having that reminder nearby can always be helpful for them and make sure you get the best letter recommendation possible. The other thing I'd say when asking for a letter of recommendation is to do it formally. I personally recommend approaching all of your teachers in person. That's what I did, having a proper conversation with them outside of class time, and then following it up with an email. During COVID, of course, that can't exactly happen, so I would highly recommend trying to schedule a 15-minute Zoom meeting or going to go see your teacher during office hours to ask them, but just make sure you do it in a formal setting. That way you really show to them that you're taking this seriously and it's not some sort of last minute, oh, I completely forgot to ask for a letter of recommendation. Miss Johnson, please write me one. So along with the rest of your application, you're also going to be submitting a resume or a CV. Most universities require this when submitting an application, so this is probably going to be something you already have pre-written or you have already on hand when submitting the application. The only thing I can really say for the resume is to make sure you include everything on there: work experience, volunteer experience, any sort of leadership position you might have had, any award you've won or honor you've received. Definitely include it. Anything to make you stand out amongst the rest of the application pool is really, really crucial. The other thing I would recommend is for the dual BA on your resume, if you make any changes, is to specifically note different activities that you've done that directly link to your major, and just make a special note of that. You know, go maybe a bit more into detail in the descriptions in them. But apart from that, this is pretty much going to be the same as all other universities you apply to. Lastly, I would just say is format your resume correctly. There are so many online tools that can help you with that. Teachers, counselors, parents, just make sure you do it in a professional manner. I personally use Naviance. Most American high school students are going to be accustomed to that. I just went on there, put in all of my information, it printed out a resume for me, perfectly formatted, and that's what I used. So as the name suggests, submitting a photo alongside your application is completely optional. I personally chose to submit one, but you don't have to if you really don't want to. If you do choose to submit a photo though, please, please, please keep it as professional as possible. It doesn't need to be anything super fancy. Just make sure that you have a nice smile in it, that your hair and makeup are done tastefully, you're wearing professional looking clothes, and there's no excessive filters being placed on it or any extreme editing. I'll put up an example of what I submitted for the photo. Honestly, I just took a photo that I had done at my family's Christmas card photo shoot, slapped a black and white filter on it, and called it a day. Don't overthink it, but definitely think more school picture day and less Instagram selfie. All right, so let's talk about what is, in my opinion, the most important part of your application, and that is the essay. So the essay prompt is fairly simple. It's describe how your experiences, both personal and academic, have shaped your decision to pursue the dual BA program. Why is an international academic experience important to you as you consider the ways in which it may influence your future? And your essay can be between 750 to 1,000 words. So the two important things you really need to touch upon in your essay response is you need to identify and describe the specific elements of the dual BA program that meet your needs as a student, and then you also need to explain why the academic courses you've chosen for your time at Trinity and Columbia are compatible with your future aspirations. So I can only speak to what I personally wrote in my essay, but I chose to combine my personal experiences with my academic experiences to explain why I wanted to be part of an international academic program such as the dual BA. I was very blessed as a child. I actually spent the majority of my life growing up overseas, and I lived in Vietnam for quite a few years as a child. So I talked about, in my essay, learning about the Vietnam War as a child living in Vietnam, meeting people who had survived the war, people who had lived in the tunnels with their families to escape bombs. I met with many people who had fought on the Vietnamese side. I listened to their stories. I visited battlefields, memorials. And then I also talked about my experience as a high school student living in the States and learning about the Vietnam War in an American classroom. Hearing about the domestic political impacts of the Vietnam War, hearing from the American soldiers' side of what it was like to fight in the Vietnam War. And I talked about how what really struck me from both of those experiences was that each time I was only really hearing from one perspective. And you can't really get a proper picture of an entire situation unless you can look at the situation from both perspectives. So for me, I talked about duality a lot in my essay. I talked about how for me, especially when choosing to study something such as European studies, it was really important that I didn't just get the American perspective on European studies, I also got the European perspective on European studies. So that was something that I really tried to emphasize in the first half of my essay. So for anyone out there, you don't have to have some sort of backstory like mine, but definitely find some way to connect your personal and academic story together to explain why you specifically want to study the dual BA. I then also talked about specific things in the program that would help me to succeed in the future. So this is when you really show your knowledge of the program. So I specifically talked about certain classes, the language trainings, the small number of people actually within the cohort, the academic advisors, anything that you really connect with the program, that you can show to them that you've done your research and that this is really what you want to do. So make sure you are really specific in this part of your essay. And then I also talked about what I want to do in the future. So most of us don't really know what we want to do, but we all kind of have a general idea. So instead of being general and just picking multiple different things, I tried to focus on one thing in particular. So I spoke about how I don't really know what I want to do in my career yet, but I know that I want to make a contribution in some way to democracy. So I talked about how I might in the future want to be a diplomat or work for the UN, but I wasn't really sure yet. But I knew that it was going to be really important in the future that I would be able to emphasize and understand the other side. So I talked about how if I'm in the UN or I'm at a trade talk or any sort of meeting where I'm representing one side of a deal or argument, I need to be able to understand where the other side is coming from so as to be successful. So that's really just what I talked about in my essay. This is just really personal to yourself, but I would definitely say make sure you read the prompt carefully and make sure that you address every single part of the prompt. So make sure that your entire essay directly ties to the prompt. Don't go off on any tangents, and your essay should be pretty successful. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the dual BA is slightly different to other university application processes in the way that it actually has 2 rounds. So the first round is just your general application, your essay, your letters of recommendation, everything we basically covered in this video so far that you submitted. So in mid to late February, you're going to hear whether or not you've moved on to the second round of the application process, which is the interview. So if you have gotten an interview, congratulations. This part of the video will be very helpful for you. So the way the interview process works is traditionally you either go to Dublin or you go to New York City to either university and you interview there, or you always have the option of doing an online Zoom interview. With COVID happening this year, I have a feeling every single interview is going to be online, so just be prepared for that. So it's a panel interview, which means you're going to have at minimum at least 2 people in your interview with you. One of them will be from Trinity College Dublin and the other will be from Columbia University. You can have more than 2, it just completely depends on what degree you're applying for and even just what day you happen to be showing up for your interview. For myself personally, I had an admissions representative from Columbia at my interview, and then I also had Professor Zulika Rogers from Trinity College Dublin in my interview. Dr. Rogers is actually the head of the dual BA program as well as being the head of the Middle Eastern and European Languages and Culture department. So it was a very intimidating interview to sit in front of somebody who knows the subject so well that you're applying to study for. But the thing you have to remember is they're not expecting you to know everything. You're going to university to learn. So if there's something you're not sure about, don't be afraid to say, actually, I don't know something, or I'm actually really interested in learning more about that. Please elaborate. I will say though, you do need to have some knowledge going into this interview. Anything that you've mentioned in your resume, anything you mentioned in your essay is going to be pretty much fair game for them. So if you specifically talked about a certain conflict, be prepared for questions to be asked about that conflict. If you talked about your experience in a certain club that relates to, say, young Democrats or young Republicans, be prepared for questions related to those groups. I can speak for myself. I talked a lot in my resume about how I'd done a lot of work on political campaigns, how I was president of my school's Young Democrats Club. So I was asked quite a few questions about the Democratic Party in general because I was also applying for political science. For that, I was actually surprised because instead of just asking me, general questions on a national level, who do you think's going to win the party nomination? I was asked specific questions about Virginia Democratic politics. I was asked about my thoughts on our governor's recent blackface scandal. How did I think he dealt with it appropriately? Questions such as that. They also touched on things that I had mentioned in my essay, being a dual citizen. So they specifically asked me, what are your thoughts on the current political climate in the UK? Because you're from there. What's your take on Brexit? They really are going to want to make sure that everything that you mentioned in your essay, in your resume, that you talked about, you're passionate about and understand to a level that they know you are going to be able to expand upon that at a university level. So for the interview, just be yourself, dress professionally, address everyone formally, just be on your best behavior, really. It's like any other interview, but do be prepared for actual content questions in this interview. It's not like other traditional college alumni interviews where it's like, tell me about your family, or what was your favorite class that you took in high school. These questions are going to be much more content-based, but that shouldn't freak you out. If you make it to the interview process, you should have a pretty good grasp on what you want to study. So just be yourself and you'll be totally fine. So as cliche as it is, my final piece of advice to people looking to apply for the dual BA is to just be yourself on your application and to make sure that your passion shows through. The dual BA admissions office is looking for people who are passionate about this program, who are passionate about Trinity and Columbia, and who are especially passionate about the degree pathway that they want to pursue. So just let your inner nerd fly, show how much you love what you want to study and how much you love this program, and that is really the best thing you can do to ensure a successful application. So without further ado, I wish all applicants the best of luck. If you guys have any further questions or need advice or anything like that, please feel free to reach out. I'll be answering as many of your questions that I can in the comment section down below.